Perfect. Good. So, essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to get familiar with taking off information. We're going to do section takeoffs today. And we're also just going to once again do some parade, do some loose cruise. And finally we're going to come back and land either at the carrier or that's once again up to free. And it's also up to you guys. It's obviously we have done some case ones. The last few training sessions, so I think it's also a good idea to be familiar with landing on the airfield again as well. Okay?
Today, since we've been doing a lot of carrier stuff lately.
Hey, good. So once again, takeoff and landing back at Novorossiysk. Loadout is going to be standard training, so CAT M's on the wingtips and 2 fuel bags, no center line. Okay, and flight plan. Essentially, we're really just going to probably fly out about 50 to 70 nautical miles towards the ocean, so we're gonna stay feet wet, do all of our formation training. We're gonna rendezvous, and we're gonna go back and basically land on Novorossiysk, right? So we're going to once again do some formation section takeoffs today, and then we're going to do some rendezvous training. So we're pretty much just going to
request rearming.
Do the there's two methods of rendezvousing. We're gonna do both. So once we do one, we're gonna break off. Probably like everyone gets like 1 mile separation off each other, and then we're gonna come back and do the other one. Then we're gonna do some parade positions, some parade turns, cruise position, and cruise and turns, and then yeah, we're just going to follow the number 1 here. Number 2, we're not really going to do, not today, because that's going to be a whole
Rearming complete.
a whole kind of worms that we're going to have to put into our brains today, which might get over.
I only have a small can today.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just take a look at formation takeoffs, right? Okay. So obviously today doing section takeoffs, but normally we would form up in a 4-plane formation. Today we're going to split it into 3-plane and 2, right? So 3 and 2. So 1, 2, and 3 will be obviously in 3-plane, and then 4 and 5 will be probably like 200 feet behind doing 2-plane. So if you didn't know, it's actually the lineup is pretty much the same as the parade formation lineup. So it is the there you go. So what you're going to do is you have the wingtip light and the Lex light. You line them up together, and then get the nozzles of the aircraft roughly in line of sight. No detectable nozzle curve, and you're in the right position, right? If you're in a 4-plane, sorry, going back to the slide here. If you're in a 4-plane formation and the air, if the runway is kind of thin, kind of narrow, you might need to sort of just adjust slightly to compensate for that. But essentially, that should allow you to have no wingtip overlap, except for once again 4-plane. And even then, it's kind of like, hey, there shouldn't be too much, right?
Dog said test.
So,
a dog drawn
once again, once you're in position, you're just going to stay in position as per the SOP. And today we're going to have a 4-second intervals for the formation takeoff. I think this is mentioning intervals. For section takeoffs, I usually like to have a little bit more time in between each section, say like 10 seconds per section. So
Yep,
once again, that's Free's decision.
I guess more of a minimum. I mean, we can certainly go longer. Shorter would be a bit tougher unless we're trying to look real fancy.
Yep. Okay, so once again, during taxi, super simple. Just make sure you have adequate clearance from the person in front of you. And for takeoffs, all aspects of takeoffs must be pre-briefed. So I'll obviously brief what we're going to do once we are holding short of the runway, or even before we taxi, right? And it takes position on the downwind side of the runway. Hopefully everyone knows what the downwind side of the runway is. Usually it is the left-hand side, unless otherwise dictated. Today, we're just going to assume that it's always left-hand side, I think. It's since we're not really going to do right-hand patterns, hopefully. So, always on the left, in our case. And then everyone else is just going to, obviously, position themselves according to this, right? For 3 aircraft formations, line up with the lead on the downwind side. That's number 2 on the center line, and number 3 on the upwind side. So the upwind side on the right. Once again, wingtip launch rail overlap should not be required, but is permitted if necessary. Once again, if the runway is narrow, overlap to see fit, right? So that everyone gets in to formation. For plane formations, line up with the lead section. A lead section on the downwind half of the runway and the other section on the upwind half. So as you can see here, for plane formation, dash 1 and 2 are on the left side of the runway center line, and 3 and 4 on the right side of the runway center line. Once again, wingtip overlap is usually unavoidable, so don't be too, you need to make sure wingtip separation. Don't be too tight on that. Let's see. Takeoff checks are to be completed when the flight is in position. Each pilot looks over the next aircraft to ensure the speed brakes is retracted. Flaps are set for takeoff. All panels are closed. No fluids are leaking. Safety pins are removed. Rudders are towed in. Nose is straight and the launch bar is up. And obviously, we can't do a thumbs up, right? So what we'll do is we'll go from the last person
Farron is Anissa onto
in
Signal
the
Live.
flight. So, for example, today we have 5. So I usually say, like, for example, 5 green jet, 4 green jet, 3 green jet, 2 green jet, 1 green jet. I believe that's also what we do. That's also the same here. Going back up. Yes. So as long as we go from back to front, then we can. That should be good. And obviously, once everyone's good, we're ready for takeoff, right? Good section takeoff, right? Section takeoff assumes 2 aircraft take off simultaneously without delay. Okay, this is super important here. So what we're describing here, the first is the run-up check, right? So engines will run up to approximately 80%. You're going to check your instruments. You're going to make sure your nose of steering is on low, so it shouldn't say nose of steering high. Make sure it's on low. On signal from the leader, brakes are released. Throttles are advanced to military power -2% RPM. So obviously look at the IFA underneath the left screen. If the afterburner, the lead, if you're ever leading, will only go to mid-range burner. This is so that, once again, the person, your dash 2 or your dash 4, right, depending, will be able to, apply more power than you if they are lagging behind and adjust accordingly so that they are going to stay in formation with you. Position in parade bearing with wingtip separation. Gears and flaps are retracted on the signal. So once again, if you're section lead or if you're flight lead, I don't think there's SOP saying that we are going to retract gears and flaps at a specific altitude. But just, for example, now say gear up, flaps up, or something like that. So something to communicate. I'm not sure if there's SOP on that free.
No, it's just kind of, I guess, put it up when you feel like it's safe.
Yeah. So usually it's positive rate of climb, gear up, flaps up, right? Turns into wingmen are not to be made at altitude less than 500 feet. So in this case, don't do right turns. Don't turn into your wingman as flight lead, right? AGL is super important. So when both sections begin takeoff roll from the same point of the runway, the second section must delay takeoff roll until 10 seconds. There you go. So 10 seconds after this first section starts the takeoff roll. When 2,000 feet of runway separation exists at the beginning of takeoff roll, use a 5-second delay in 7 seconds. Okay. Right. So today what's probably going to happen is dash 1 and 2 obviously will take off first. 10 seconds, dash 3 will take off. And since we have, we'll probably say that dash 4 and 5 will have like 2,000 feet behind dash 3. They can wait about 5 seconds until 3 takes off, or you can wait 10 seconds. So that's it. Let's do 10 just to be safe, right? Do 10 seconds off of each one. Any questions so far? I know I'm just sort of reading off the PowerPoint, but hopefully I am just adding certain things to clarify.
Are we going to be taking off? I was going to say, are we going to be taking off in sections at the same time? Because I know we've had trouble with that with Novorossiysk and the wind.
Good. So so just to give you a bit of an illustration, right? So
I think we tried that the first time, and they almost crashed.
we could definitely give it a go. This is why we're practicing. So when we start a line, right? We got dash 1. Let's see that different color. Obviously, yeah. Dash 1, dash 2, dash 3. So we're gonna take off first. 10 seconds after. Then dash 3 will take off, and then we have dash 4 and dash 5. They will wait 10 seconds, and then they'll take off. Does that make sense? We'll try and do that.
Copy. So everybody's rolling individually.
So it's not like every individual aircraft is rolling off individually. So you'll have 2 and then 1. Once again, we're doing something non-standard today. So we're assuming 3 plane formation and plane, right? Because we have 5 people. So dash 1 and 2 will take off together. Dash 3 will wait 10 seconds after they've rolled. Okay, that's important. After they've started rolling, and then he will start rolling and take off. And then dash 4 and 5 will wait 10 seconds after dash 3 has started rolling to then start taking. Does that make sense?
Got that one.
Yeah? Okay. Good.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Flash
1 and 2 together and 4 and 5 together.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Right. In the event of an aborted takeoff, the aircraft aborting must immediately notify the other aircraft. Aircraft not aborting should add max power and accelerate ahead and out of the way of the aborting aircraft. This allows the aborting aircraft to steer to the center of the runway and engage the arresting gear if required. Okay. So usually there is a V1 speed, which I'm not too sure of how you would get without some sort of calculation. So I think some testing needs to be done in terms of the V1 speed. A V1 is essentially the speed in which once you reach, you cannot abort a takeoff, no matter what circumstance, because you might not. Usually, it's because you won't have enough runway to be able to make that stop.
So a little tidbit for Novorossiysk, sorry to interrupt, is the runway is incredibly short, so V1 is not going to be that high of a speed.
Yeah,
it's less than a mile.
So yeah, let's say, I don't know, V1 probably like 90 knots today. 90 knots.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So essentially what we're talking about is once you reach 90 knots, no matter what, you have to continue to take off. Right? So that's V1. Usually you wouldn't announce it V1. And then rotate is usually 140 knots from my experience. Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
Good. Lovely. Taking the time. All right, formation flight basics. If you're doing any sort of leading, for example, myself and sectional leads, we'll use pawn. It's actually just a nice acronym. I'm going to steal this. So platform, be smooth on parameters. Area, middle slash neutral energy. And that's usually referring to your throttle should just generally be in the middle. Once again, this will allow your wingmen to have much more room to be able to manipulate their throttles and adjust their and adjust their position relative to you. Obviously, monitor your wingman, right? And and plan ahead, right? So plan what's going to happen next, what maneuver you want to do, what phase you're in, stuff like that. Most of you guys today will be wingmen. Very, very important to note is that it is mainly the wingman's responsibility to maintain your position. Make sure you're not going to crash into each other and to not crash into your flight lead. Right, your flight lead's going to do all the thinking for you. Your job is to maintain the position that you are expected to have, to keep, and to maintain situational awareness. Right, so most of the time we won't be flying parade because parade requires you to just pretty much fixate onto whoever you're flying off of. This means that you won't be able to take your eyes off of whoever you're flying off of to gain situational awareness of the theater, right? So you can't look at your sensors and not worry about having to, have to worry about crashing into your wingman, and so on and so forth, right? So most of the time you'll be in cruise, which will allow you to do that. Okay, once again, safe separation, right? Once again, lead will have to also be responsible for making sure, he's not going to crash into anybody, but that's sort of like a lower in the list of his priorities, right? Because he needs to think about what's happening next, the radio comms and such and such, right? So to make sure he doesn't have to worry about you crashing into him, make sure that your position keeping and safe separation is like your highest priority as a wingman. Okay. Any objections to that?
Nope.
No, sounds good. Thank you.
Good. Lovely stuff. Okay. This is formation flying is probably one of the hardest things you will learn at the start, right? I think it's definitely not something that's just procedure. Do the procedure. That's it. It's definitely a skill that develops through time. So if you haven't formation flown a lot today, or like prior to today, remember today is all about training. If you find yourself unable to keep the position, don't beat yourself up. I'll give you some tips and tricks on how I sort of like trained my formation flying.
And this guy is good. He's like a bug on a bumper.
You flatter me. Anyway, cool. So, as a general rule of thumb, when correcting back to position, correct the vertical spacing first, then the lateral spacing, and then the fore aft spacing last. Right? So, obviously, this is a general rule. If you obviously, if you think your lateral spacing is going to be a detrimental factor to, say if you're like pretty much about to crash into your wingman, yeah, obviously fix that first. But once again, it really depends, right? So this is a general rule. Make sure you have your vertical spacing first, lateral spacing, and then your fore and aft, right? So, obviously, when you're, for example, if you're flying parade, right? You have this reference point, and then you have the nozzle reference. What a lot of people tend to do now is, okay, now I just have to I have to make sure this is perfectly lined up. The nozzles are perfectly, no noticeable curve whatsoever during any phase of flight. You're not the Blue Angels. You don't have to do that. Okay, you can get to that point, but don't expect yourself to do that. First of all, okay. Also, just because you have been giving 2 reference points doesn't mean you can't create more reference points that work for you. Okay, so avoid fixating on any particular formation reference. Constantly scan all references. This will make small changes in position more obvious, right? So don't hyper-focus on the reference points. Look at the entire aircraft, right? Look at the entire aircraft that you're flying off of, because you're not just flying off of. Okay. Just powering small increments with smooth throttle movements and joystick movements. Essentially, how you can think of it is once you're in position, whatever inputs you think you need, basically, sum it make it so that it's like a quarter of the movements that you think you need, right? A small change, a small correction is often better than a massive correction because that you would oftentimes overshoot, or overcorrect, right? It's better to make it so that the change is happening slowly than quickly, so that you can, you have less to have to sort of counteract that change. If that makes sense, I hope I'm making sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. We're turned into right. So this is talking about turns, right? So obviously we'll do a lot of turns today, usually at 30 degrees to 45 degrees. When you're turned into, okay, let's bring up the pen. This is flight lead. This is you. So green is you, right? When you're turned into, right? In order to keep the position that you're in, you have to just ever so slightly pull back on the throttle, right? How much you pull back is entirely up to what you see, right? Because there's no set, if you get it turned into, you pull back 5%. That's not how that works. You fly entirely visually, right? Now, if the flight lead or your reference is turning away from you, you do the opposite, right? You increase your speed just slightly, right? Once again, reference off of what you see. This is all about feel. This is all about what you see. Okay. These should generally avoid turning into wingmen when flying close formation. If a turn is made into the echelon, each aircraft will maintain the same relative position as in straight flight. Okay. Does anyone not understand what this means?
If you turn into echelon means that you keep the person's fuselage on the horizon.
Yes, pretty much. Yes. Good. So, just to make sure everyone is clear about this, right? So once again, we're now going to assume that we're looking at the aircraft from the back. Say if the turn is away from you, you can keep things level, right? This is because you can still see your wingman, whoever you're flying off of. However, if the turn is turned into you, if you do this, you'll lose sight of your reference. So what you need to do is you need to push your stick down, descend a little bit, and you want to make sure their wings is aligned with yours, if that makes sense. This is also coincidentally called an IFR turn, and this is called a VFR turn. Okay. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Good. Great stuff. Right. Before we get into rejoins, I want to really quickly point out something that a lot of people struggle with when doing turns. Turns throw a lot of people off because now they're going, okay, so now how do I make sure I stay in the position? Remember, one of the things that you really need to remember is once you are settled in the turn, you have to constantly apply backstick pressure, because as you roll and you start turning, you lose lift, right? So there's two things to counteract that, because obviously that you now have an additional factor that's going to make you turn left or right. To counteract that, you can either speed up or apply aft stick pressure. Most of the time, you apply just a bit of aft stick pressure to be able to maintain that the altitude that you're at. Okay. So as you come into the turn, just ever so slightly pull back on the stick. Once again, how much you pull is entirely determinant on your reference, and it will make sense once you do. And as you come out of the turn, what you will usually find yourself having to do is you will roll wings level whilst pushing your nose down just slightly. With the exception of, obviously, if you're doing an IFR turn, you will need to pull your stick back a little bit more to, obviously, go back to being parallel with your lead. Does that make sense? hopefully.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Okay. I'm also just going to really quickly talk about. Once again, this is much easier if I could just show you guys, but I don't have like a ready mission. Are there air spawns? Per any chance?
Not in our
I have
server, no.
not explored like Tbilisi at all, so there might be just for the regular training server outside of ours here. So
I don't think
we've got our stuff up here, and then down in the southeast at Tbilisi we have just like regular spawns.
Okay.
We can have Milsim and just everyone else just in one spot.
Okay. Don't worry about it too much. Right. I guess I'll do that when we are in the air. Right, rendezvous. That's the last thing we're talking about. Oh yes, go on.
Also, one thing you can do is if you want to show something specific, just kind of have us fly away and we just F2 you or something like that.
Can do,
like,
yeah.
Or however you want to do that.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So running rendezvous and the CV rendezvous, right? So essentially a running rendezvous is used when you're already sort of like your whole flight is already going towards a certain point, right? Maybe it's time sensitive or whatever. You can't really afford to be loitering around a certain area just to wait until everybody rejoins, and then you get to your point, right? So what you want to do is very, very simple. First of all, make sure your lead is above the horizon line. So make sure your lead is above you. Okay. Once again, you'll have much more, you'll have a much better situational awareness when you're looking up versus looking down, because if you're looking down, you're looking into your cockpit. Not great, right? So you want to look up into outside, right? So put your lead above you, okay? And then essentially, you can either get your range in using TWS with the radar. You can use the SA page, or you can use air-to-air yardstick, which we'll use today to help us as well. It's just an additional thing that lets us know the exact distances. At about 1,000 foot range, I forgot. Okay, so at about 2,000 foot range, you want to close in at no more than 50 knots of closure. To say if I were to be flying contract speed around 300 knots today, then you'll be at 350 at 2,000 feet, and then at 1,000 it is 25 knots or less, and then you get up to basically you start to inch closer and closer and closer until you get to your reference point, and then you'll obviously try and match my speed, right? Once the position closes the gap into parade or cruise, it depends on what I'm going to call later. So we'll probably do cruise first, so we can get everybody together, and then we'll go into parade. Okay, CV rendezvous. This is something I like to do a lot. That's much easier. Essentially, what I'll do is I will fly at contract speed or whatever speed I mention. I usually fly at max endurance. Here, I'll do a 30-degree angle of bank, and all you're doing is you're intercepting me. Okay, make sure you're intercepting inside the turn, and then what you're going to do is you're going to cross over. Make sure you're crossing under. Always cross under, and then you will form up on my right. Okay. So, does anyone have any questions?
No.
Nope.
Good. Right. CV rendezvous could be any point in that is briefed, but then a TACAN rendezvous is essentially just that point is off of a radial. So we basically have like a fix off of a TACAN, right? Everything else is the same. Right, so you'd still intercept me inside the turn. You would cross over and under. the formation, and then you would form up on the right echelon essentially. Okie dokie. Once again, I don't think we'll be doing Takan Rendezvous. I'm not super particularly familiar with this. I'm still getting myself familiar. This is the first time I've heard of it. When I read through the document, I'm definitely quite interested to know. I think it's pretty much the same. So.
Yep, and especially in Novorossiysk, in that region of Russia, there are no Takans. So there's not much we can do unless we go way far south.
Cool. Right, this is the fun part. The formations. Okay, so we have 3 parade formations. We have a cruise formation. And then we have your combat thread, your wedge, and your fluid 4. Okay. Essentially what we'll do is we'll only do parade and cruise. So we're going to do some echelons, echelon right, echelon left. We'll do fingertip. Okay. So, or finger 4. Now it's called fingertip because if you hold your hands out right now, your right hand out, right, you'll see that formation looks like our fingertips. That's something that I found really, really, really cool. I believe this is called also called fingertip fingertip right. Sometimes you can do it on the opposite side, fingertip left. I'm not sure if that's the thing, but I've definitely heard some squadrons do that. Division balanced is essentially you have 2 sections, and then the other section is just slightly further away. But you're still in a pretty close proximity. I'm not sure the exact distance, unfortunately, because I don't do this often. Our cruise is we'll talk about that in a second here. Cool. Right. So once again, this is taken directly from the NATOPS manual. The alignment we've talked about, and you've got pallet balance parade here, fingertip. Right, so this is fingertip left. You can see right here, and then cruise. Jeez, is my stream still running?
Yep, you still look good.
Yep.
Right. So you might be thinking, okay,
Question. Sorry.
What's the difference between cruise and parade? Okay, cruise essentially allows you, and according to my understanding, cruise essentially allows you to be able to freely move in sort of like a cone, right, behind your reference. Right? So it also basically the separation allows you to be able to look at your sensors and get situational awareness without having to necessarily go, I'm going to crash into my reference aircraft, which I've talked about before. Okay. The expectation is you're once again freely able to move either to the left or right without the direction from the flight lead. And this is particularly important when you're doing turns, because once again, you always want to, you technically always want to have the wing turn, the flight lead turn into you, because that way you'll conserve a little bit more fuel. You won't spend more fuel trying to catch up on the outside. You would just move into the inside of the turn, and then you can reduce throttle a little bit. So that's technically more conservative of your fuel, but if you don't need to do it necessarily. Does that make sense?
A doctor on tube said hello.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hey, question
Good.
here. What are we gonna do with
Go
the
ahead.
5th aircraft? The 5th aircraft?
That's a really, really good question. What I could do, today we'll probably do some. I might sort of like break off, essentially let you guys do the formations, hit F2 or whatever, and then we can swap in and out. We could do that, or we can do literally just let's see. we'll do like a we'll do like a diamond. We'll do some fun formations if we really wanted to, right? So we'll still do figure 4, but now there's an additional, right? And then we can then do for cruise. It's very simple. We'll just do -1, -2, and then obviously you've got your -3 and -4, and -5 would just do an echelon. Essentially, you guys would do echelons, or other formations if you wanted to try it out. Once again, not super worried about having to keep these formations to a T today. I just want everyone to be able to comfortably formation fly, because the formations can be dealt with afterwards, after you can comfortably saddle left or right from your reference aircraft. Okay. Right. So parade formation we've talked about. Good. And the cruise formation, once again, is a looser formation which allows the wingmen more time for visual lookout. Cruise provides the wingmen with a command maneuver behind the leader, which allows the wingmen to make turns by pulling inside the leader and requires little throttle change. The cruise position is defined by a line from the lead pilot's head to the trailing edge of the missile rail, with 10 feet of nose to tail separation. Once again, this is a rough guide, right? The wingmen are free to maneuver within the 7-degree cone established by that bearing line on either wing. In a division formation, number 3 should fly the bearing line, but always leave adequate room for number 2. So number 3, right, section lead, will have 2 aircraft that he has to be aware of. Okay, and number 4 flies cruise about number 3. So number 4 will just do, once again, his only. The only aircraft he has to worry about is number 3. Number 3 has to worry about 1 and number 2. That's it. Okay, I've done a lot of yapping. Let's do some fly, right?
Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of information here. Once again, I'll reiterate this. If you have the luxury of another screen or open kneeboard, just have this. Let's just have this slide up, right? Just to remind ourselves of the information. So, once again, what we'll do is we will first do a CB rendezvous. Super simple, right? And we'll go from there. I will brief everyone where we'll rendezvous after we are holding short of the runway. So it's fresh in our memories.
Sounds good.
Sorry, what's the password again? Jeez.
Check. See, with no capitals.
Perfect.
Yep. And then, Doug, I see you're at Bleezy. Reslot and then put check as the password, and then you should see our jets.
Okay.
Which slots do you want us to take?
Just take the gypsy slots, and then one of us just needs to take the other 18 slots. It doesn't matter. Like once you're in the
Yeah, as long as you spawn in Novorossiysk, either flight.
Do I need to leave the server and come back in with a new password?
Nope, you just gotta
No.
go to select roll.
So you go back to the coalition where you have the choose the red or the blue, and at the bottom there's that password. You put check in there and then hit enter, and then you'll have more options.
Okay.
All right, so hopefully everyone also has the kneeboards for comms. We'll be on SRS today, and we'll be, according to SOPs, just following the comm plan.
Sounds good. And then, everyone, let's just do Gypsy flight, even if number 5 is on latch. Just use that information on the kneeboard.
So good.
So Gypsy is mids A 34, mids B 56.
Affirm.
Correct.
So how do I slot in?
Just a reminder. Switch to nav. I'm not sure if IFA still is working.
Oh yeah. I don't know if Jimmy has fixed that or we've tested that. If he has,
Yeah, it's
when
fixed.
you flip to IFA, instead of doing that, just flip to nav when your alignment
Done
is
with the
finished.
alignment.
Yeah. Go to nav. Yeah. IFA doesn't work yet. Yeah.
Sorry, so how do I select an aircraft?
Did you get into the password?
Yeah.
So do you see us
did a
then?
bunch of them pop up? It should be immediate, and you should see a bunch more.
There it is. And the password, just check CHECK.
Yep, no capitalized letters. And then you gotta press enter after.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I hadn't pressed enter. I just punched it in. You guys go ahead. I might spectate. It's gonna take me an age to set everything up.
Sounds good.
And Joker is
I guess
6,000,
for now
right?
We'll have. Sorry, what?
Joker.
Yep, Joker 6,000. Bingo is 4,500. And Doctor, just let us know if you.
Joker 6,000, right?
5. Yes. So we'll operate as a flight of 4 now. So formations will be standard.
Perfect.
Gypsy 1-2 up.
1-3 up.
Ready, comms check.